I had a conversation yesterday with a liberal mind. There are many different minds, many different identities in this modern world that are shaped by family values, society, corporations. And so there are minds, meaning that how someone thinks and how someone reacts is predictable. These minds do the same thing. When confronted with a stimuli, they act in predictable ways. In the same way that there are political parties, each party has its ideas, and everyone inside the party is supposed to subscribe to those ideas. That's the exact same thing as the mind. And so in this way, there is a liberal mind. Liberal from the political party. And the liberal mind is an emotional mind. It's a mind that does not require logic. And it's a mind that gets information from hearsay and images and stories that don't need to have any rational foundation. This is more of a feminine mind, overly feminine mind. Women communicate in words and language, and that's how they get a lot of information. They communicate amongst themselves. And it's not about having a rational, logical mind, which is more of a masculine mind, which is the masculine mind. To really go deep into the facts, make sure everything's correct, look at the context. That's not what the liberal mind or the feminine mind is concerned about. The feminine mind is concerned about feelings. And so this is just completely transferred over to the liberal mind. They're not concerned with facts and rational argument. It's all an emotional response. And so I was having a conversation with a liberal mind yesterday, and some points were brought up, which I probed about. And the response was predictable. She was becoming visibly upset, holding her head in her hands, making statements that didn't make any sense, denouncing propaganda, yet talking about the propaganda that she's denouncing. It was about how people think that Trump is like Hitler, and that everything that he's doing is just like Hitler. And so I said a very simple question. I said, okay, well, if he's just like Hitler, who are we killing? And there was that kind of pause, like, oh yeah, right, Hitler's known for his genocide, and we're not killing anybody. So, but then at the same time, there's like this anger. Like, how dare you even ask a logical question. And so the predictable response that happened was the liberal trigger, where they become emotionally overwhelmed, and then an exit. Because there is nothing to talk about. There actually is no conversation. This happened another time. I was in Washington Square Park. I live in New York City, which is a hub of liberal minds, liberal, irrational minds. And there was a woman who was selling pins in Washington Square Park. And so I went up to her and I said, "Oh, seems like you're against Trump." And she said, "Are you a Trump supporter? Because if you are, you really hide it." I thought that was very interesting, because what she's doing is she's profiling me as if there's a face of a Trump supporter and a face of liberals. And in some ways, she's right, because they all do the exact same thing. So if they all have the liberal mind, they're all going to talk the same way. They're going to dress the same way. And so I probably dressed more like a liberal on that day, or the fact that I was in Washington Square Park, or that I was younger, or maybe because I had a beard and they thought it was a Marxist beard. And so I started talking to her and asking her questions, and all I got were emotional responses. Until I started asking more rational questions, until the exact same thing happened: shut down. She put in her earphones and she said, "I don't want to talk to you anymore." Then I said, "Well, if you don't want to talk to me anymore, and I'm just asking logical step-by-step questions, then you don't want to talk to anybody anymore." And she said, "No, I don't want to talk to you." As if I was some devil. But really, what's happening here is that their minds have been so conditioned through society and education to become hysterical. And so they have no concern. And you can watch the news outlets that have these liberal minds. There is no concern for facts and context. It's a totally emotional response. And they're not grounded in reality, because reality is facts. And so this is a product of society. This is a product of non-awareness. Because when you're aware, you find a center inside of yourself, and you ask, is this something I should be repeating? Should I look more deeply into this? Instead of a reaction which has no attention whatsoever. And on the other side, there's the conservative mind. Very logical mind. Very safety-oriented mind. It's a mind that will keep you alive. That's what the mind is designed to do, the conservative mind. The mind is concerned with resources. It's a masculine mind. And the masculine mind is concerned with dominating the physical world. So the conservatives have a much better place in dominating and controlling the physical world. They're much more interested in assets and resources, hence lower taxes. And they're about safety. That's why they support guns. Whereas the emotional mind has no basis in reality and fact, so there are more taxes, which is less money, less guns, and welfare. And who cares where the money comes from? Because that's not something they need to think about, because no thinking is involved. So that's something to keep an eye out, is the minds of people. And what you'll begin to realize is that the vast majority have a mind, meaning that they have a mind that's predictable, which means that they don't know themselves. Only someone that knows themselves is able to be spontaneous. And if you're not spontaneous, then you're predictable. And if you're predictable, then you have a mind. And so it's best to drop the mind, to stop interacting with all the thoughts and emotions that go into the mind, and instead witness them. And by witnessing, they eventually disappear and there's clarity. And in the clarity, you transcend the minds and discover who you are and begin thinking truly for yourself. This is a very difficult task, possibly the most daunting task anybody could endure, because you have to confront yourself completely and drop everything that you think you know about the world and yourself. So I encourage you to put more attention on the minds of the people that you interact. See if you can find patterns, and also begin to watch your mind and your patterns, because these patterns you acquired from somewhere else. They're not yours. You weren't born with them. You acquired them. So ask yourself, is this really who I am? Do I have the liberal mind? Do I have the conservative mind? Is this the right way to think? If you're looking to go deeper inside of yourself, discover who you are, check out my website, zazoonow.com, and book a one-on-one session with me. Everything goes faster when you have someone watching your step as you're watching your steps as well. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.